Our path is the path of acceptance. Acceptance of what? Acceptance of the material world. While operating in matter, spirit has to sing the song of immortality. The material life and the spiritual life must run together. The material life can be perfected only by listening to the inner dictates of the soul. We have to accept the world as it is, but we must not think that the world has completed its task. No, far from it. We have to work and work for the earth consciousness. We have to free it from limitations, imperfections, bondage, and ignorance. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness. What does each human being have? Consciousness. It is through consciousness that we see reality. When we pray, when we aspire, our finite consciousness becomes infinite. Our so-called unaspiring consciousness becomes aspiring. This is heaven. When the inner urge is functioning, then there is no end to our possibilities, no end to our achievements. And when we achieve the infinite, then naturally we surpass the achievements of other worlds. There is deep inside us a divine child called our soul. We don't get time to feed this child unless and until the soul, which is the conscious representative of God in us, is fulfilled. We can never be fulfilled in our outer life. Now, how do we make the connecting link? If we know the divine art of concentration, if we know the divine art of meditation, if we know the divine art of contemplation, easily and consciously we can unite these two worlds. And to our widest surprise, we shall see that the outer world, which is now full of complexity, disharmony, and so forth, is bound to become harmonious, simple, straightforward, and genuine. The inner life has the capacity to simplify the complexities of the outer life. The inner world and the outer world must go together. Otherwise, what will happen? The inner life will have to wait for millennia to offer God's truth to the world at large, and the outer life will remain a barren desert for millennia. There is definitely a link between these two worlds. We have to consciously feel this link, and finally we have to touch and strengthen the link with our soul's determination and our body's dedicated service and willingness. A true aspirant sees work as a veritable blessing. To him, each difficult and apparently painful job is a blessing in disguise. To him, work is nothing short of a dedicated service. He has discovered the truth that by offering the results of what he says, does, and thinks, he will be able to realize God. He works for the sake of God. He lives for the sake of God. He realizes divinity for the sake of God. Each soul is a chosen instrument of God. Each soul has a particular mission here on earth. Each person has to realize and fulfill himself, not in his own way, but in God's way. God, out of His infinite love, and by virtue of His self-imposed divine duty, gives to each aspirant what he needs. At the same time, God does not expect an iota more than the aspirant can offer. It was a great human voice that said, "From each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs." There is a common complaint which is voiced by all human beings, irrespective of age, caste, or creed. What is it? I have no time. With a poetic sigh, they tell the world, so much to do, so little is done. Here, time is acting as our worst foe. Time is able to cause worry, fear, and frustration in us because we are working through our ego and for the ego. There is always a constant battle between our ego's injudicious intensity and time's inscrutable and merciless flow. But if we work with our soul and for the soul, then time not only helps us, but at each moment it appears before us as a golden opportunity, for our soul knows unmistakably how to throw itself into the cosmic rhythm of the infinite time. True, each human being is an instrument of God, chosen to do a particular work, to fulfill a divine mission here on earth. But nobody should imagine, even in his wildest dream, that he is indispensable. God gives us an unparalleled opportunity in each distinct job to enter into His heart's absolute infinitude. If we do not avail ourselves of this constant opportunity, God, the compassionate Father, cannot help saying, "Sleep, my child, sleep. You are the child of my eternal patience. I wanted you to be in my all-transforming light. Since you do not want that, I shall have to be in your eyeless night." Duty is painful, tedious, and monotonous simply because we do it with ego, pride, and vanity. Duty is pleasant, encouraging, and inspiring when we do it for God's sake. What we need is to change our attitude toward duty. If we work for the sake of God, then there is no duty. It is all joy, all beauty. Each action has to be performed and offered at the feet of God. Duty for God's sake is the duty supreme. In our unaspiring life, we perform duties and feel that duty is another name for labor. We also feel that duty is an imposition, while reward is a most coveted pleasure. In our aspiring life, duty is voluntary. No, never is obligatory. And reward is the energizing joy of selfless service. In our life of realization, duty is our divine pride, and reward is our glorious transcendental height. No right have we to undertake any other duty before we work out our own spiritual salvation. Did God not entrust us with this wonderful task at the time of our very birth? The supreme duty is to constantly strive for God realization. Time is short, but our soul's mission on earth is lofty. How can we waste time? Love your family much. This is your great duty. Love mankind more. This is your greater duty. Love God most. This is your greatest duty, the duty supreme. There are two things. One is remembrance, the other is forgetfulness. All of us know that it is our duty to collect our salary. Indeed, it is our duty, and we always remember it. But there is another duty. We have to work. That duty we forget. In order to get our salary, we have to work. Somehow we manage to forget this. In the spiritual world also there is a duty. This duty is to enjoy the fruits of God realization. We all know it, and we are extremely eager to perform this duty. But unfortunately, we forget the outer duty, meditation. One duty is to enjoy the fruits, the other duty is to acquire the fruits. But we are clever enough to cry for the fruits of realization long before we have entered into the field of meditation. No meditation, no realization. Without meditation, God realization is nothing but self-deception. Duty and reward from the spiritual point of view go together. It is like the obverse and reverse of the same spiritual coin. Duty is man, the aspiration, and reward is God, the realization, and God, the liberation. Again, in reward is man's eternal journey, his ever-transcending journey, and in duty is God, the ever-transforming, ever-manifesting, ever-fulfilling reality, here on earth and there in heaven. In our unaspiring life, and even in our aspiring life, we see that duty precedes reward. Duty comes first, then it is followed by reward. In the life of realization, it is otherwise. Reward first, then duty. How? When God offers His transcendental height, His highest illumination to someone, it means that God has already granted him full realization. God has accepted him as his chosen instrument. The very fact that God has accepted him as his chosen instrument indicates that he has already received the highest reward from God. Later, God tells him about his duty to love mankind, to help mankind, to serve the divinity in humanity, to reveal God, the eternal compassion, and to manifest God, the eternal concern on earth, here and now. Spirituality, the fount of world peace. Spirituality is aspiration. Spirituality is yoga. When we have learned what we can expect from aspiration and what we can expect from yoga, world peace will no longer remain a far cry. Aspiration is an aspirant's conscious longing for the deeper reality. Yoga is a seeker's conscious oneness with God. Aspiration leads man to God consciousness. Yoga offers God consciousness to man. Aspiration takes man back to the source. Yoga inundates man's consciousness with light, peace, bliss, and power of the beyond. Why do we aspire? We aspire because we love God and want God to love us. Why do we practice yoga? We practice yoga in order to feel consciously that God is our very own. We practice yoga because we feel that our fulfillment on earth can take place only when we have revealed and manifested God's divinity and reality here on earth. When we aspire, we go far beyond the domain of the physical mind and sit at the feet of God, the light. When we practice yoga, we dive deep within, and there we see God and talk to Him face to face. He who has no aspiration can never free himself from stark ignorance, and he who does not practice yoga can neither receive nor achieve boundless light. Here on earth, we have two major instruments. One is the mind, the other is the heart. Very often the mind that we use is the doubtful mind, and the heart we use is the fearful heart. But unfortunately, the doubtful mind can never aspire, and the fearful heart can never practice yoga. True aspiration and teeming human limitations never go together. True yoga and the life of unlit pleasure cannot go together. Constant aspiration and all-fulfilling divinity can and must go together. The highest type of yoga, which is conscious surrender to God's will, always goes together with the life of God. Aspiration tells man that he will be able to see the truth of the beyond. Yoga goes one step ahead. Yoga tells man that the truth of the beyond is within him. Finally, God comes and tells man, "My child, you are the truth of the beyond. You are my beyond." Spirituality is the fount of world peace. Spirituality is the fulfillment of all responsibilities. This is because divinity is the birthright of spirituality. When an individual touches the foot of a tree, his consciousness enters into the tree, into the branches, into the leaves, into the fruits, and into the flowers. In the spiritual sense, God is the tree, and the leaves, fruit, branches, and flowers are human beings. When you touch the feet of God, your very consciousness enters into His universal consciousness and the infinite beings of His manifestation. Each individual has his own way of defining peace. A child finds peace in noise and activity. That is his fulfillment, and in his fulfillment is his peace. An adult finds his peace somewhere else. He finds his peace when he feels that he can lord it over the world. And in the evening of life, an old man thinks that he will get peace if the world recognizes his greatness, or if Mother Earth offers her gratitude to him. He feels that he has done much for humanity and Mother Earth, and he expects something in return. He will have peace only if his expectation is fulfilled. But peace can never dawn on any individual if it is not properly sought. The child cannot get true peace by running around in the street. He soon finds frustration in his so-called fulfillment. A day will come when he will pray to God for a calm and quiet life. Then he will have peace. If an adult wants to have peace, real peace, he has to realize that he cannot get it by possessing the world or governing the world. It is only by offering what he has and what he is, consciously and unreservedly, to the world at large, that he will have peace. The old man who will soon pass behind the curtain of eternity can have peace only if he cherishes the idea that he is not a beggar but a king. He was a king and he still is a king. He has offered his inner and outer wealth to mankind and Mother Earth. If in the evening of his life he does not expect anything from the world, then his inner consciousness and outer being will be flooded with peace. World peace will begin when the so-called human expectation ends. World peace can dawn only when each individual realizes the supreme truth. Love is the revelation of life, and life is the manifestation of love. World peace will come into existence when each individual nation consciously feels that the other human beings, the other nations, need not depend on it. No nation is indispensable, but if one nation helps another devotedly and unconditionally, then the world will be inundated with fulfilling peace. Spirituality is the fulfillment of all responsibility. To love the world is our responsibility. To please the world is our responsibility. we know our own teeming responsibilities. But when we think of the world, unfortunately, we do not think of it in a divine or proper way. The world immediately misunderstands us, and we find it impossible to have an inner connection with the world. It is like a mother and her son. In spite of her best intentions, the mother finds it difficult to please the son. She thinks of him in her own way, and likewise the son understands the mother in his own way. Because of this lack of communication, the mother and the son get no joy in fulfilling their responsibilities toward one another. We love the world. We have to love the world. It is our responsibility. What happens when we try to love the world, or when we attempt to fulfill, or when we attempt to fulfill our responsibility to the world? We try to possess and bind the world, and while we are doing this, we see that we have already been bound and possessed by the world. We had a sublime opportunity to fulfill our responsibility to the world, but we have badly misused it. We want to please the world, but how can we please the world if we are not pleased with our own lives? It is sheer absurdity to try to please others if we are not pleased with our inner and outer existence. God has given us big mouths, and we try to please others with our mouth. But inside our hearts there is a barren desert. If we have no aspiration, how can we offer the world peace, joy, and love? How can we offer anything divine when we don't practice what we preach? If we don't follow the path of spirituality, we shall only preach. It will be a one-sided game. But if we really practice yoga, we shall also live the truth. Our preaching will bear fruit only when it is practiced. How can we fulfill all our responsibilities? We have tried in human ways, but we have failed. We think of the world with good thoughts and ideas, but the world remains exactly the same as it was yesterday. We love the world, but the world still remains full of cruelty and hatred. We try to please the world, but the world doesn't want to be pleased. It is as if the world has taken a vow that it won't allow itself to be pleased. And why does all this happen? It is because we have not pleased our inner pilot, the one we have to please first. If we have no aspiration to please our inner pilot, how can we offer the world peace, joy, and love? Unless and until we have pleased the inner pilot, the world will always remain a battlefield where the soldiers of fear, doubt, anxiety, worry, imperfection, limitation, and bondage will fight. And consciously or unconsciously, we will play with these undivine soldiers. Fear, doubt, anxiety, worry, and animal propensities can never offer us world peace. Again, deep within us, divinity is crying to come to the fore. There, the divine soldiers are our simplicity, sincerity, purity, humility, and feeling of oneness. These soldiers are much more than ready and eager to fight with fear, doubt, anxiety, and worry. Unfortunately, we are not consciously identifying ourselves with the divine soldiers. We are consciously or unconsciously identifying ourselves with the undivine soldiers. That is why world peace is still a far cry. World peace can be achieved, revealed, offered, and manifested on earth only when the divine power of love replaces the undivine love of power.